In an earlier video, I talked about road biking as a way to help increase endurance for mountain biking long distances. In preparing for the Shen Heroes though, I've decided that I want to take my training a step further. That's why I got an indoor bicycle. Today I want to talk about the indoor bike that I got, the benefits of training on one of these, and I want to discuss some things that I've learned about training on one of these for mountain biking in particular. Let's get going. So the bike that I got is made by Kettler. From what I could find, these were sold new in the early 2000s for about €1,700, which made it a fairly premium option at the time. Recently I'd been looking into indoor bikes like this and stumbled upon this one at a thrift store for $65. Because I had been looking into ways to increase my endurance for mountain biking, I decided to just go ahead and buy it, as the price seemed pretty fair. Once I got it home, I started familiarizing myself with it. Something that you'll quickly notice looking at the bike is that many things can be adjusted, like moving the saddle forwards or back, up or down, or tilting it. Speaking of the saddle, it's a fairly standard gel type and could easily be swapped for a different bike saddle if desired due to its standard mount. The bars can also be adjusted in many ways to accommodate for different height and body types. They can also be placed in different angles so you aren't tied to the drop bar style and can train more upright as well if you want to. The bike also has these aero bars, and to use them properly you lean onto these elbow pads. Unfortunately mine was missing one, and so I decided to just take the other one off as well. Integrated into the bike is a simple computer that runs on batteries and tracks information like your speed, distance, power and time. You can also plug a heart rate sensor into it if you want to. It would have been nice if there was a way to export any of this data off of this device to your phone, for example, but this wasn't really a thing yet when this bike was new, and so that's an area where this bike feels a bit dated. Not a huge problem, but it can make tracking your progress over time a bit inconvenient. The bike's pedaling resistance can be adjusted with this knob, and it is easily my least favorite feature of this bike. When you twist the knob to increase or decrease the resistance, it seems very inconsistent. It doesn't seem to make any difference for a long time, and then suddenly the resistance increases or decreases a lot. This makes it really difficult to come back to a certain setting once the knob is turned. I tried counting the amount of turns, but I can never seem to come back to a setting quite right. Modern indoor bikes will often simulate shifters of actual bicycles, which definitely seems like a nicer way to go about this to me. Now I tend to just find a sort of middle ground setting and go with that for the whole workout, which is definitely not optimal. So, what's it like to train on this compared to a normal road bike? If you've never used one of these before, the first thing you'll probably notice is that it's really intense. On a regular road bike, there are a lot of moments heading up to an intersection or going downhill, for example, where you can coast a bit. You might lose a little momentum doing so, but you can take these tiny breaks every now and then. On an indoor bike, this is quite different. If you stop pedaling, that flywheel loses momentum really quickly. And once it's slowed down, it takes a lot of effort to get it up to speed again. Therefore, you have to keep pedaling. Always. This teaches you to manage your effort and heart rate and make sure not to let it get very high for too long, as this will quickly burn you out. This means that it's quite difficult to be on an indoor bike for extended periods. However, that's not the only reason. See, on a normal road bike, you're constantly slightly changing positions. You'll move your hands on the bars and the bike constantly moves slightly from side to side, meaning that you're never touching the seat the same way for very long. On an indoor bike, this isn't the case. And I've found that the stationary seat in particular can cause a lot of soreness in your back end. To some extent you can mitigate this by wearing padded cycling shorts and standing up sometimes, but honestly, I've found this to be the main factor preventing me from extending my indoor rides further. Maybe someone in the comments has some tips for this. Another thing that you'll find out about indoor bikes when you try them is that it gets boring. Staring at a wall for 90 minutes or so just isn't for everyone, and I've been either putting on something to watch or listening to music or podcasts. If you are used to road biking and being out in nature a lot, this will be quite the adjustment, and honestly for some people it might even remove the elements of cycling that they enjoy the most. So after having said all this, why do I still choose to use an indoor bike alongside road and mountain bikes? Well, at this point I'm convinced that this is the most effective way to build endurance. It might not be very fun, but if you stick with indoor bikes and keep trying to do more distance in the same time or less, while keeping your heart rate under control, you will start to see the benefits out on the trails. Also, I live in the Netherlands, which means I'll often deal with rainy or otherwise bad weather, and having the option to work out inside just makes it much more likely that I'll do it consistently. Now, I of course train for mountain biking in particular. Obviously, for Duchenne heroes, the most important part is training long distances. However, it's also very helpful to improve your climbing abilities. For this, I apply the 40-20 rule. For 40 seconds, I'll basically pedal as fast as possible, and then I'll have 20 seconds of calm pedaling before I go again. I then do this for about 10 minutes or so. Now, when I say the 40 seconds are of pedaling as fast as possible, it is important to keep in mind that you need to be able to do it 9 times after again. Ideally, the 10th time you do this, you still have just enough in the tank to do the 40 seconds at a pretty strong pace. I like to employ this as part of my training. So for example, 20 minutes might be spent going at a steady pace, roughly heart rate zone 3, and then 10 minutes are the 40-20 rule, and then I'll repeat. Of course, listen to your body well when doing this type of stuff. There is no point in wearing yourself out. If we then get to a conclusion, I'd say that indoor bikes are very useful when training for cycling events. It might not be the most fun experience, but it's great for building endurance, and I'll be using mine a lot to prepare for Duchenne Heroes. I hope that this video gave some useful insight in what it's like to use one of these, and if not, hopefully at least it was entertaining. I want to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you next time.